and welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing my monthly reading recap. I read a bunch of books in July, so let's just jump right in. The first book I read in July was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It honestly took me a while to really get into this book, and I think that's because at the beginning there was a lot of exposition and a lot of explaining the world, since it is a fantasy world and it does need a bit more explanation. But even after we got past all of that, there were still bits in this book where I was just really struggling to read through it. But I did love the overall plot, so I did decide to give it a higher rating. One of my coworkers has been recommending this book series to me for literally like a year, basically, ever since she found out that I read a lot and that I haven't read this series yet. And so far I really like it. She said that as soon as I buy the second book, I need to just go ahead and buy the third book, because apparently the second one leaves on a cliffhanger and I'm gonna just want to jump right into the third one. So I guess I'll be buying both of the next books at the same time. I think my biggest complaint for this book was the whole love square that we had going on. It just felt weird to me that Jude's sister kind of stood back and watched her make out and kind of fall in love with this boy when she knew that he wasn't interested in her at all. And I have always hated the I bullied you because I liked you plot type deal, and that is exactly what happened with Carden and Jude, and it kind of pisses me off. I'm gonna be totally honest. It kind of pisses me off, and the only reason that I'm kind of chill about it is because the fact that the fairy can't lie, so I know for a fact that he does actually like her, because otherwise I'm not sure I would believe that he does. But yeah, I will definitely be finishing this series. I just have to buy the next books. The second book I read in July is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The plot was just so good and well written, and it kept me wanting to read more even when I knew I had to put my book down. I was like, just 5 more minutes, and then I'll finish this chapter, and then I'll leave it there, and then I would finish that chapter and I would still be craving more. It felt like there was so much going on in this book with side plots and obviously the main plot, but it never felt overwhelming in any way, because it all was woven so beautifully together that it just made it feel like it had a good natural flow to it. So I never felt like there was a particular side plot that was not getting enough attention, because there were always woven in so beautifully. I don't even have any other words. They're just so perfectly woven together. And I was so distressed when I was reading the last several chapters of this book, and they weren't talking, and one of them was moving. I was so distressed, but it did end up okay. Everything worked out, so I can't complain too much. But really, I think a good book should stress you out a little bit, you know what I mean? Also, Justin is just the perfect book boyfriend, and he has taken over the #1 spot on my list of favorite book boyfriends. He's just so amazing. I just literally don't even have the words. I love Justin so much. The next book I read is Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. This is, I don't want to say a mystery novel, but I don't really know what other word there is for it, so I'm just gonna say mystery. But there was almost a thriller aspect to it as well, not in a scary way necessarily, but anticipation and what was really happening, and who was telling the truth and who was lying and all that kind of stuff. Unlike a book that I read later in the month, which I'll get to in a minute, I really appreciated that the like newly graduated high school versions of the two main characters were actually very different from the adult version of themselves. Because I feel like when you're going back and forth between like two time periods, it can be a little difficult for some authors to like differentiate the personalities and how they would change and grow over the years, but it actually felt like they were still the same people, obviously, but they had actually matured and grown up. Though, one thing I did have a problem with was how the girls as teenagers were portrayed, because I don't know if it's just because they were like spoiled rich kids, but from what I have experienced in like being a teenager and being surrounded by teenagers when I was in high school, is that no high schooler has that much maliciousness in their heart. Like, I've never met girls or guys that have like done the things that they did to each other in this book, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I really liked that we didn't know what like actually happened until like the very end. What I didn't like though was that we didn't really get closure. And that also really rubbed me the wrong way, which is why this book kind of has like a middle ground rating, because I don't hate this book. I actually really liked the plot. I liked the storyline. I liked the idea of it, but the execution was not the greatest, and you know what? That's okay. It is what it is. The next book I read was I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lewis Duncan. This book got 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and it's because it was so poorly written. Looking at it now that I have read it, and like looking at the size of the words in the book compared to other books that I read this month alone, but also just in general, I'm pretty sure this is more of a like middle school grade book. So maybe I'm being really harsh on it because I'm 20 and I'm reading a book that's meant for middle schoolers, but I'm gonna give my honest opinion. There was so much potential with this book. And I was really excited for it because I had seen a lot of promo for a either movie or TV adaptation of this book, and it looked really interesting. I hadn't watched it because I knew it was a book and I wanted to read the book first. That's on me. But I was just really disappointed, honestly. I genuinely struggled to like half of these characters. Because Barry, one of the male characters, was so annoying and made me want to like punch a wall. And when what happened to him, I was like, okay. And I was ready to move on. I was like, this does not concern me. I do not care if this man lives or dies. And when I tell you that the ending of this book was so anticlimactic that it actually ruined the entire book for me, I mean that wholeheartedly. Because I could think of a million different ways to have ended this book that would have been better. I was just so underwhelmed. Like, it was not an interesting ending at all. There were no stakes. There was, like, no anticipation at all. It was just, like, the reveal, and then it was over. Yeah, this did not get a very high rating for me, but that's okay, because I read plenty of other books that were okay this month. Which actually brings me to my next book, which is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I do not actually have a physical copy of this book because I borrowed it from my cousin when we were on vacation, but I read this book in the span of like 3, maybe 5 days max, and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. My cousin and her friend had actually been telling me beforehand. They were like, oh, you're gonna love this book. You're gonna be like filled with anticipation, like every time you pick it up. And I was like, okay, okay, but I was trying to like not have super high expectations in case I was not feeling that way. But they were totally right. Like it was so well written and so good. It was so good. And now I like totally understand why people prefer Colleen Hoover's like thriller books over her romance novels for sure. I ended up giving Verity 4 out of 5 stars, and the only reason that it didn't have 5 stars is because when I was halfway through the book, I was joking about how the only plot twist that would really shock me was this specific thing, and if you haven't read it, I don't want to like spoil it for you. But I was joking, and then that ended up being the plot twist, and I was so upset that I had called it because it took away some of the shock factor. So I was just kind of underwhelmed, I guess. And that brings me to the last book I read this month, which is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and that's because I don't hate the book, but it doesn't feel like anything special. So it kind of got the midway ranking. So this is the book that I was referencing earlier when I was talking about When We Were Innocent, because sometimes when we were in the present day, where the main characters of this book are like in their 30s, it felt like they were 20. You know what I mean? Like it felt like they were being kind of immature, they weren't communicating. It just kind of annoyed me that these 30-something year olds were acting like children, basically. And other than the last like 3 chapters of this book, I felt like I called every plot point before it actually happened, which was kind of upsetting because I was really hoping that I would be more like shocked and surprised by some of the like plot twists, but I called a lot of them, so I just wasn't. Though again, I didn't hate this book, I just don't think that it was anything like insanely crazy. So that is all the books I read in July, and now I will go ahead and tell you all about my August TBR. Okay, so my camera did die there for a second, so I had to take a brief intermission, but I am back. And now I'm going to tell you about my August TBR. As always, these books are not in any particular order, so I might read them in a completely different order than the way I'm going to list them right now. And I also might read more books, or I might read less books, but it is my intention to read these, if nothing else, this month. So the first book I want to read in August is People We Meet on Vacation. I have been craving an Emily Henry book ever since I finished Book Lovers, and I have been holding myself back because I finished Book Lovers in June, and I didn't want to read this book because it was the only other one I have right now, and I don't really want to get her newest book until it comes out on paperback, since I have all of her other books in paperback. But I can't wait any longer, especially after the last couple of books I read in July were not super great. I know that Emily Henry will always pull through, or at least I'm really hoping she will. Next we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I got this during my birthday week vlog, and like I said in that video, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about this book, but I am very excited to form my own opinion on it. The next book from my August TBR is French Kissing in New York. I don't remember when exactly I got this book, but it was a couple months ago, and it has been sitting on my shelf looking all cute and pretty. And I am finally ready to read it. I actually put this book on my TBR a couple of months ago, but I got into a bit of a reading slump, so I did not end up reading it. But I am really hopeful that I will read it this month because it just seems like such a fun plot to me. So like I said, super excited for the potential of this one. And the last book on my TBR for this month is not a book that I currently own, but I am planning on buying soon, and that is Loud, Accepting Nothing Less Than the Life You Deserve. This is a book by Drew Offalo. I'm so not pronouncing that right, and I apologize. I just love Drew's, like, personality. She's hilarious, she's confident, she loves putting men in their place, and all of those things are things I love to see in a woman. I just think she's super cool, so when I heard that she was releasing a book, I got super excited, and I'm really looking forward to reading what she kind of has to say, because I could kind of like guess what this book is going to be about from the title, but I mean, maybe there will be more, maybe it'll be about something else entirely, so I am just very excited. But that is all for today's video, so if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!